Welcome back again to my top 10 tips for things to take into consideration before deciding to run away from the UK and move abroad. So today I'm on number 10, finally, which is homesickness and identity struggles. So no matter how beautiful the view, how delicious the pasta, or how exciting the experience of living abroad might be, homesickness is real and it can hit you when you least expect it. Living in another country, especially long term, often triggers deeper emotional and personal reflections. You begin to question not just where you live, but where you truly belong. So yeah, this is one that, especially for myself, I'm desperately struggling with, really. Mentioned previously before about having elderly 80-something-year-old parents in another country that I just constantly worry about and think about and even dream about. I have lots of, I suppose you could call them nightmares, just obviously subconsciously there in my mind. They're just always there. Basically, I'm always worried about things back in the UK. And also my other daughter, my 16-year-old daughter, who starts her first exam today for her GCSEs, and the homesickness really has hit hard in the last few months. Just realizing basically that the whole of her 5 years in secondary school I've just not been part of. I would have liked to have been there and been part of more of her life, knowing and hearing stories about what she's been up to at school and helping with homework and all of these sorts of things. So homesickness just constantly plays on my brain. Also think about my nephew, who's maybe in his second or third year at secondary school now. He is a chubby little lad, and I worry about him getting bullied by people, and I'd just like to be there to be kind of a bit of a father figure to him, because his dad's basically just abandoned him and moved up to Scotland basically, and he's not around to be there. They do chat occasionally, I believe, on the phone, but it's just not the same. Just take his son fishing or take him down a park and just go on little dad and son adventures, which, my mum always says to me whenever I come back to the UK, she says, Zach, his name is, Zach's really been excited for you to come back, because it means that he's got someone to do stuff with. And we'd go out sometimes exploring on the bike, and I live near a great big woods called a thicket basically, that we just go and adventure around and just basically go and check out what we can find in the woods. Basically, it's quite fun and interesting. So all of these things I've just totally missed out on basically since I've moved here to Italy. I've just literally lived my life in regret, unfortunately. Identity struggles. I've said to my girlfriend before, I don't even know who I am anymore. In those moments when the pressure gets to me and I finally explode, having a child that's quite a screamy child that, I don't know, possibly has ADHD or autism or something. She can't control her behaviour basically a lot of the time. So I tried to keep all of that in, just peaceful Jimmy. Tried to keep all of that in, but eventually it gets to a point when I end up basically snapping, and I've snapped numerous times at my girlfriend, and basically it's not me. I'm basically seeing a whole side of my character that I've not really ever seen before. Basically not really dealing with the stress and the pressure very well, not having a job, and everything that I seem to do just fails. So identity struggles. Even if and when I have a friend here, like an Italian friend, I don't really find it so easy to explain stuff to them, obviously because of the language barrier. So I've not really found anyone that I'm that close enough to explain to them my mental problems and how I'm feeling, really. So I just have to keep them all to myself. I do kind of sometimes mention to a mild level to my girlfriend, but she's just completely switched off. She's not really got the capability within her, just how she is. Seeing how her mother is, her mother just literally has no compassion for anyone. She's just one of those typical Italian women that is just self. Quite a lot of Italians people are just quite self. They're all quite selfish people. So these are the sorts of things that I kind of point out to, like if you're moving to another foreign country, it's hard. If you're just one person that's sticking a backpack on and going to another foreign country, kind of expecting that everything's all just going to fit into place. I mean, sometimes it probably will do, but I don't know, a lot of the times you might just find yourself just going from one place to another until you just get to a point where you're just like, I'm fed up of just moving. I just want to actually settle in a place and settle down and not just keep moving around all the time. So, homesickness, if you go off to Bali or you go off to Thailand, Australia or whatever, you're absolutely ridiculous miles away from friends and family. It's going to take you like a good part of a day to get all the way back to the UK should an elderly parent or a friend or a family depart us and you have to go to a funeral or something. It's going to add even more stress to your life. I completely understand that the UK is absolutely screwed, but as I always say in all of these videos, so is every country. Every country is screwed. The whole world is screwed. It's just a mess. So if you're running away from the UK because the cost of living, you're still going to find in other countries that the cost of living is going to be a problem. Even in somewhere like Bali, you might find that you're not paying that much for your rent, but then there's going to be a whole load of other issues. The place is just going to be, it might be completely dirty and you might not be able to find certain things that were easier for you to find when you're in the UK. I don't know about things like council tax and such, like, in places like Bali, I don't know what you'd have to pay. But yeah, it's just identity struggles for me, just not really knowing where I exist. I've come to the conclusion in my mind, in my head, I already know this is not my home. This is not where I really expect to be when I'm 80 years old. I basically expect to be back in the UK, living out the rest of my life in the UK. This is just temporary for me. I'm kind of just made up my mind. Usually whenever I make a decision, I tend to usually really stick to it. There's not really much change in me. I mean, if I've come to the conclusion that I don't like this place, then I don't like this place. There's not really much that you can do to change that. There's little things that you can do to make it a little bit better, but here, I mean, all the things that I've mentioned before, like not being able to find the simplest and basic of things that I used to be able to find in the UK here in Italy, especially food-wise. I like to have a bit of different world cuisine, stir fries and sometimes Indian food stuff, which you don't necessarily find particularly as easily here in supermarkets here in Italy. Everything's just revolves around Italy. It's just like pasta, pizza, all the standard things that Italians are well known for. But I mean, it makes me laugh. I said this to my girlfriend. I said, you've got all of these things, that you can export to the rest of the world, like pasta and pizza and wine and stuff, but you're still a poor country. So it just makes no sense to me. All these different things that Italy is well known for, you'd expect them to be rich as fuck, basically, but they're still as poor as anything. So yeah, missing the familiar, even the mundane. It might be the sound of a British accent in a coffee shop, a walk into your old neighbourhood, the comfort of a Sunday roast, a proper cup of tea. I do have cups of tea here, but it's just not the same as, well, I have coffee here, really. I've got coffee now. Yeah, well, just knowing how things work without having to ask, double check. Small everyday things often take a huge emotional weight when you're far from home. Even something like watching UK news broadcast or hearing a sarcastic joke delivered in that dry British tone can bring a wave of nostalgia or even a lump in your throat. You realise just how deeply woven these things are into your sense of self. Actually, going back to just watching a UK news broadcast, when I first got here, I think Theresa May was in charge. She was Prime Minister. So when I've discovered we have the Italian Sky here, Sky Italia, and I've discovered basically that in the news channels, there's literally one channel which is British Sky News. Well, actually no, there was two. There was BBC World Service, and then there was Sky News. So I used to just be plugged in, and like my dad basically now. My dad literally wakes up, say 6-7 o'clock in the morning. The first thing he does, he goes downstairs, he puts the TV on, and he basically puts the news on. he makes his breakfast, his cup of tea, and then he just sits there all the way up until like 10, 11 o'clock at night when he goes to bed, basically just watching news. Unless my mum comes down and sort of says, right, I want to put a British Bake Off on, or I want to watch this sewing program, or something like that. Sometimes there might be a documentary about trains, which my dad's well into, so he might go and watch that. But a lot of the time, both of them, they've come from an era. From they're basically born in the 40s. My dad was 1939, my mum was 1940. So a lot of their life has basically been, them sat around the wireless, as they call it, like a radio, listening to things about the Second World War and listening to Churchill making speeches. So their whole lives has basically revolved around news. So that's literally how they are now. Literally, when I come back, it's just 24 hours news, and it's just depressing. That's the one thing that I would say about with England, is everyone is just programmed to be constantly depressed, because the newspapers, all the news channels, all the news radio, everything is just depressing stories. Someone's been killed, this kid's been stabbed here, some woman's killed herself and all of her children. All of these sorts of things, to me, they're just basically designed to just make English people hate. I think for me, this is a conspiracy theory here, but for me, at this present moment in time, people are being, dumbed down, they're being programmed. There's no jobs and everything's going to shit, because for me, they've stopped pumping, like all the rich billionaire and the elite people, they've stopped pumping all of their money into all of these big businesses and tech businesses, because they're transferring all of their money to weapons companies, because maybe they feel there's a war coming, or they want a war to come, because I think part of their whole plan is that there's just too many people on the globe. There's just a lot of the immigrants that people are finding coming to England are coming from war-torn countries. Now, those war-torn countries are being fucked and decimated because we keep selling weapons to people that fuck up and decimate those countries. So why is anyone not surprised that these people jump into their boats and try to come over to England? They have nothing. Their countries have been destroyed. So if you don't want immigrants in your country, what is termed as illegal immigrants, then basically don't allow your governments to bomb the shit out of everywhere, or sell weapons to other people to bomb the shit out of everywhere. Again, I've gone off piste again, but yeah, caught between two worlds. One of the hardest parts of living abroad long term is that you can start to feel like you don't fully belong anywhere. Yeah, in Italy, you're the Brit abroad. No matter how well you adapt, in the UK, after years away, you might start to feel lit out of place too. So yeah, that's a perfect example there. I am the Brit abroad. So when I went to my daughter's friend's party the other day, I kind of just dropped them off, but I kicked around in the park for a while. Everyone's just staring at me. Italians are quite starey people anyway. In England, it's just deemed as being rude to stare at people, but here, everyone's just constantly just staring at you. But yeah, they do it even more to me, because I don't know if that's just my paranoia. I don't think it's my paranoia. I just think it's just the thing. I am the Brit. I stand out like a sore thumb. Everyone's always staring at me like, oh, look, here's the English guy. And to me, there's an element of some people there probably don't like the English. Some people might be intrigued and want to know me because they want to know better English. I don't know, really, but it just adds to my paranoia, my anxiety, my mental health issues, that I can't adapt here, basically. I just always feel the odd one out. Again, as I say, my girlfriend and my daughter spend most evenings just talking or arguing and shouting at each other in Italian, and I'm just on my own, basically, just in my head, just kind of thinking, not even feeling part of the family. It's just them two, and then there's just me. So yeah, this sense of being in between cultures can be enriching but also lonely. It also often sparks identity questions like, am I still me in this new culture? Do I belong here or there? Or what is home now? Yeah, I don't feel at home here. Don't really know who I can't act myself. I mean, around my girlfriend's parents and her family, and even with her friends, I'm just not me. I'm not myself. I can't be myself here. I can't be myself around people here. It was just a lot more easier when I'm at home, just to kind of be able to fit in, even though I'm a bit of a bit of a social recluse with social anxiety as it is, in like great big groups of people. But if I'm in a small group of people, then it's easier for me to fit in, tell the odd funny dry joke or something. I'm just constantly always lost, and being unemployed here in this country and a man and a father that can't even provide for his own family adds even more to my mental health. Like, triggers of homesickness can be subtle or sudden. Homesickness isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a passing mood, like see your hometown on a map, scrolling through photos of old friends, missing out on family gatherings or family holiday tradition. There's been occurrences, I say this a lot, that I'm part of a group on Facebook of my local area, and I'm constantly always looking at this group. I'm constantly always engaging in the comments. And there was one the other day, people were complaining about this bin that was overflowing, basically. And I looked at the picture and I was just like, oh, it's like a proper hand to face moment. Like, these, people in England tend to just moan and complain about everything. And this bin was hardly, it was overflowing, but there was like 2 or 3 bits of stuff on the floor. The rest of the bin was still on top in the bin, but there was like 2 or 3 bottles that had fallen out. And they were all like, oh, there's the council, blah, 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 blah. And I think it had just been a bank holiday weekend. So it hadn't been changed over the bank holiday weekend. But literally within a couple of days of, getting back to work, the bin was changed and it was all fine again. But you come and see the bins here in Italy. You go and see bins in India or Nepal or, I don't know, other like places that are actually properly deemed third world countries. They don't probably even have bins. It's just piles of rubbish. I mean, you see videos and pictures sometimes on social media of like rivers in India that's just a mess of plastic bottles and trash and rubbish. There has been some places in the UK that are like that, but this is what I always say, you've got to think yourself lucky. There is groups, like volunteer groups, sometimes there's actual organisations that go and clean these things up. But in other countries, here in Italy, you don't get that at all. It's just, the bins are just overflowing and it's just rubbish everywhere, basically. No one looks after the actual park. We actually have park wardens in our parks that come and, actually plant some flowers and make sure that all the trees are all chopped back, and shrubs and all sorts of gardening things that they do. But here, the local parks here are just overgrown with weeds and rubbish everywhere and graffiti and dog shit. It's just, it kind of irritates me sometimes looking at my hometown group, but at the same time it just makes me wish that I was there even more. It's just like, I looked at that picture of the overflowing bin and I could see the rest of the park in the background, and it was just spotless. It was clean, most beautiful lush looking green grass. Now over here it's only like the 8th of May, and already all the grass looks like it's all burnt. It's all just yellow and brown with lots of weeds all growing out of it. It doesn't look, like a lush English countryside that I desire really this time of year. Yeah, what also, like, missing out on the family, not so much family gatherings, but family holidays. There was a time when we would go, just for a caravan holiday, me and my family, when my other daughter and my nephew are quite young. We did a few caravan holidays, but then since I've moved to here, they've continued kind of doing it. Maybe not so much with my daughter, but they went with my nephew, my sister, my mum, dad, and I wasn't there. It's just all of them. And sometimes they do go off. think they went to a family reunion once. My daughter went, my nephew, but I was the only one that wasn't there. Basically, I wasn't able to come back. I think I literally just returned back to Italy, and a week or so after they had gone to this reunion. So it's just things like that, it's just homesickness. Yeah, just sometimes it comes in waves, like during a holiday season or when big things happen in the UK, and just not there to experience it with the people that I most love. I think it was VE Day the other day. It didn't have anything to do with that over here in Italy. So it wasn't until I phoned my mum, and my mum said they were watching all the celebrations or whatever on TV. If I was there, I'd be sat there, nice cup of tea, bit of cake, watching it, having a bit of a story from my dad about, oh yeah, I remember this when I was 6 years old, and telling a bit of a story about how it was and how it used to be. Just missing out on all of those things. Yeah, missing home doesn't necessarily mean that you made a mistake. Doesn't mean that you're not strong or adaptable. It just means you're human. I mean, I suppose it is perfectly entirely possible to love your new life in another country and the old one in UK. These feelings can coexist. Things like, I suppose what could help is to blend both worlds, and maybe like cook a British meal once a week, keep up with UK news or TV. In fact, I don't even suggest that at all. Get as far away from that as possible. It drives you mad. I mean, I said earlier that I did used to watch all the time. I was watching the UK news, but it got to the point that it kind of just made me really, really even more depressed. It was just negative. I kind of get my news now from, sometimes I'll tune into LBC and listen to a bit of James O'Brien, or just mainly James O'Brien, and just listen to what the UK is moaning about today. Ultimately, I can spend a whole 2 hour or 3 hour, whatever it is, show listening to it. Sometimes I literally listen to it for 5 minutes and just go, no, turning this off, can't deal with this today. So that's really, I've got to the end now. So that's the end of episode 10. Hopefully I can kind of start to continue doing other videos. I've got some videos of other people, their experiences of leaving the UK for other countries. I think I'm probably going to start with those first. I've got a whole load of other videos that I want to discuss. I mean, one of them's probably no point in me doing it now, but I want to discuss or have my say on that Netflix drama that happened a month or so ago, Adolescence. So as I say, I have a nephew who's around 13, 14, I think he's 13 actually. So I wanted to kind of discuss that in a video. I think I'll just keep that one brief and just say what my thoughts and feelings on that are. So I'm going to end this video here. And that was number 10. And then actually, before I continue with the other videos, I will do it like a conclusion type video, maybe add in a few other things that weren't in my top 10. So that one, I might just bang that one out quickly now after this video. So I'll probably still be wearing the same clothes. So yeah, I'll do that now. Laters.